Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Branch Out Podcast. I'm Vince.
I'm Emmanuel, and this is, what is this, episode 3?
Episode 3, yes, exactly. And today we are joined by a guest, namely Jason Ransome.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Hey Jason.
Happy to have you on.
So Jason, where are you from?
I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, and I moved here in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. Why did you move to Switzerland?
I met a beautiful Swiss girl, and she was on holiday in Australia, and instead of taking back a little toy koala, she brought back a real Australian. I woke up one day and I was here.
Oh, that's cool.
Best reason.
Yeah, well, with me and my wife, it was practically the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. See?
Yeah.
Except you both ended up in the same country.
Actually, it was pretty much the same.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Like she took you to Australia.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all her fault. Yeah. Well,
This whole
You
thing.
didn't like it? You came back?
it was never our intention to actually stay there.
Okay.
It was sort of like have a kid, see the in-laws or the outlaws, and and then make our way back to Europe. And then one thing led to another, and 3 children later, we started wondering, if we're gonna return to Europe now or never.
Mhm.
So that was 10 years ago now. So
And you've made a great life for yourself here. I've seen the pictures on Facebook. You have a beautiful family.
well, thank you. Touche.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
I think there's a couple of photos on me of me on there.
Yes, definitely, Vincent.
sure.
You play a good cameo role.
Yeah.
What do we have? We have some drinks, don't we?
Yeah, you so graciously provided us with some bevies here.
Yeah.
So, which ones did you get?
Well, I decided to go with 2 of the same type of beer. So these are hell light beers. These are hellish beers.
Hell is the translation for
Light.
For light, yeah. I guess blonde, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which one are we going with first? With Junker or Ade?
Well, from the bottles, so I'll show those there. I seem to like the bottle of Junker more. I don't know.
It's a little bit more traditional looking.
Berner.
Yeah, the other one is like looks like
The other one looks like
it's
a
like a label for
Heineken,
water.
isn't it? It's got that green and blue. Isn't Heineken green and blue, or is it
I think it's got yeah.
or is it green
It's
and
got
green?
some red on it as well.
It's been so long since I drank a Heineken. Jason, do you have anything to drink?
I don't. I totally forgot about it. Because after this, I have to go put the kids to bed. And if I have a beer, the kids will probably be putting me to bed. So
Oh,
probably best I don't.
okay.
Fair enough.
Well,
Fair enough.
You're gonna have to
Then
watch
enjoy
us
yours.
drink. You're probably gonna be the only one talking any sense on this episode then.
No, I don't.
Especially when we
believe
get into the second one.
it. But I'm looking forward to it. What's on the
All
agenda
right.
tonight, boys?
Well, for starters, we usually have a little warm-up segment to begin with, and that's when we just sort of pop these things first, and then we're doing that one first. Okay.
Yeah, I just picked one
There we
because
go.
you wouldn't. You could take that
All
one.
right, I'll take that one. Go on. Swiss beers are very hard to open.
Sealed with care. Cheers.
Yeah.
By the way, I haven't had beer in like 4 weeks, so thank you for bringing that.
You're welcome. It's much better than the alcohol-free beer we had, I think.
Last week because I had a surgery a couple weeks ago, so I couldn't drink alcohol for a little while. So Emmanuel brought alcohol-free beer for us to try, and it obviously doesn't really do the trick.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well.
No.
Okay, so
Shall we get cracking?
let's get cracking.
All right. Oh, and by the way, you can actually cover the screen as long as you don't fully cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the first main topic we had today that we wanted to go through was the results of the last Swiss vote, which
Yep.
happened Sunday. Yeah, last Sunday.
Yeah.
But before we get to that exciting topic, there's some things that I ran into over the week that a lot of times when I'm looking at stuff in the media, I'm trying to the reason why I look at that stuff to begin with is I'm trying to make sense of the reality around me, right? I mean, otherwise, why look at it? I mean, once in a while they'll post a cute chick or something, and that's another reason to look at it. But most of the time, that's just, I'm not expecting that.
No.
So when I'm looking at the media and I find stuff that is curious, at least to me, in a sense that it's not helping me to actually form a sort of a sensible idea of the reality that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I tend to make note of it. And if one starts to ask themselves when they read media articles, how much sense does this actually make? Is this a balanced report? Is there any, pro and con, and, one side says this, the other side says that? A lot of the times, for me at least, a lot of the times I find that I'm left with more questions, put it that way. It's more,
Yeah.
Is that how you?
So specifically, you're talking about when you see sort of reports of current events on social media?
I'm specifically talking about, social media is almost neither here nor there for me. It's sort of, a lot of times it's just people with their opinion, and that's fair enough.
Right.
But the media is supposed to be, I don't know if you know of this idea of the, what's it called? The fourth power. Jason, have you heard of this?
Haven't heard of it.
Okay, so the idea of the fourth power is that you have the government, and you have the executive, the legislative, the judicial,
Yeah.
Judikativ in German, and then you have the media, and the media is supposed to be this fourth power. It's not part of the state, but it's supposed to be another, because all of these things, the executive, legislative, and judicial, the reason we have these three powers is to check and balance one another.
Mm-hmm.
And the media is supposed to be the fourth power in this constellation to sort of keep the others in check as well. So whenever I'm reading the media, I'm looking for that. And that's something that's getting harder and harder to reconcile. Is where's that fourth power? Right.
So the media is supposed to be the fourth power, right? In that concept.
Press.
So how would you define it being that? By simply, like, what is the media have to contain in order to do that job?
Any of the other powers, the reason you have them, like the judicial branch, for example, they're supposed to make sure that stuff that is coming through the executive or legislative branches is not contravening justice, right? So a parliament, they're the legislative branch, so the parliament can make a law, but the judiciary can say the way that you want to enforce that law is not just, right? And the executive branch can, in the case of Switzerland, for example, the executive branch can go to Parliament and say, here's something we'd like you to legislate on. And the legislative branch can say, that contravenes previous legislature. So they're kind of, they're supposed to check one another. And the press, to me, is supposed to basically check the government.
Right, yeah. So the press doesn't only check the people and sort of do the government does the dynamic of checking the people, right? Is that how you explained it earlier? I think that's roughly how you did it.
The government checking the people?
Yeah. Well, the first three powers.
No, because the people, well, in the case of Switzerland, we have a special case here because we have the power of an initiative. So, yeah, in our case, it actually can be, but in the like every other country around the world that is a democracy, they don't have the power of initiative. So the government's not checking the people because the people don't have the power in the first place to create anything in and of themselves.
Right.
But in Switzerland, I mean, so you would start an initiative and you would, create some legalese, so some legal text, and you would submit that. I don't know exactly to which office you'd submit it, but you submit that to some part of the government, and that part of the government would be tasked with checking, like, okay, is that text, against the Constitution, for example.
I've always wondered how this works because, like, from my perspective, we just get like these referendums or these initiatives that come in every so often. Mm-hmm. But I've always wondered how it actually comes to pass that a group of people have this idea of something that should be or shouldn't be, and of course not every idea can actually get through to voting, right? There's got to be some filter process there. And I've always wondered how that filter process works, and is perhaps tamper-proof. That's the thing I've been wondering about when it comes to that. What about you, Jason?
Yeah.
Well, to my knowledge, I know that if you can gain, 100,000 signatures, you can force a referendum, and which can change the Constitution. I'm happy to be corrected on that, and we're quite lucky in Switzerland that we have that we're able to initiate referendums.
Absolutely.
When I think of, even from my home country, Australia, people would love to be able to have a say on a lot of matters. And sometimes when I see the voting turnout here of 50% on referendums, I sometimes think that some people don't realize how lucky they are. I mean, you can go to the other extreme where, if I take Zimbabwe as an example, I mean, Mugabe used to beat people for trying to vote against him, and then they weren't able to vote. They were too scared to even vote. We're absolutely blessed here in Switzerland, and that's why I always vote because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what not too long ago, I was actually interviewed. Funnily enough, I totally forgot about this. I was interviewed by a French TV station, and the topic was democracy. It was actually about this vote that we had. They came by, I don't know what it was, like 2 weeks before. They came by to the house and interviewed me, and it was interesting. I mean, they what is it? I forget the name of the channel. Arte 24 or something. Arte in French. Doing a documentary on democracy around Europe, and well, good luck doing a documentary on democracy around Europe without coming to Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
That's so.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It is pretty much, and I was glad to add my 2 cents to the topic. The crew were in Bern. They actually came from France to interview 2 politicians and then me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, So we'll see. It's supposed to be released in, I think she said March or April, right before the French elections.
I think it would be interesting in. I'm not sure if they still do it, but wasn't it in Appenzell Innerrhoden or Ausserrhoden where they could still go to the town hall and they were voting by raising their hands. That would be interesting. I mean, in Basel we're a lot more modern. I shouldn't say a lot more modern, but we don't do that. But that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so fair to people who don't have hands. Or short people.
Yeah. We have to organize some milk crates.
And those rare people that have like more than two hands, it's then they've got too much power.
Yeah.
You have to make sure you're not raising two hands.
How many hands you're holding up?
Are you a multi-handed person?
Yeah. No, sorry, I was just high-fiving someone. No, it wasn't me. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but it's really interesting. I mean, the topics are really interesting, and it's fantastic that we as normal citizens can help shape our democracy and our future here in Switzerland. Absolutely. I mean, I say as a citizen, ich bin aber Billy-Schweizer. I know I'm not a real Swiss, and I'm reminded of it by plenty of people. But
Preaching to the choir.
I'm still grateful for what the Swiss citizenship does provide me.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people take it for granted here, though. If you look at, so we might as well sort of start leaning towards the vote on Sunday.
Yeah.
If one looks at the turnout of last Sunday, it was, I believe, 44%. That was the voter turnout. And while that's the higher is, I believe, about 65%, sort of like the low 60s. That's sort of like, wow, big turnout.
Yeah.
So 44 is, yeah, it's not the lowest, but it's sort of in the middle there somewhere. So I think definitely one of the things that this TV the person interviewing me was asking is how long does it take to prepare for a vote? Also, like, how exhausting is it? Or, like, you know, if every 3 months you're having to vote on new topics and so on. And I just explained it to her that it becomes part of like a cycle, like a routine. You know it's coming up. Yeah. You know it's coming up in 3 months. Pretty much a month before the vote, the topics are actually more than a month before the topics are already kind of known in the press and they're already being talked about. And then you get the thing in the mail, I think, a month before the voting date.
Yeah.
So to me, I was just explaining it in the terms of it's kind of like a cycle, and if you want to be engaged in sort of the, how do you say, the
it's optional at the end of the day. So
yeah.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, I mean, to those who don't want to be part of it, my personal thing is that they also can't really complain too much about, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So when the mail that comes to you, Emmanuel, what is your process? How do you, when you say being engaged, like, do you research the topics? If so, where do you go to research the topics? Do you read what the books are saying, or do you do your own independent research? What's the process that you take for it?
I write my own book about it.
Gospel of Emmanuel. I actually do have both of them sitting on my desk right there.
Oh, you have the booklet still?
Yeah.
Okay. There was some reason I wanted to refer to the national booklet again.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's a good question. That's one of the questions that was also brought up to me by the camera crew, the camera crew. Which way? The process is more or less that by the time the letter comes in the mailbox for me, I've already heard about the topics. So it won't be like the stuff comes in the mail, I open it and I'm like, wow, oh, this is what we're voting on. It won't be like that. I'll already have seen it on the mainstream media. And by the time I get the stuff in the mail, then I'm just sort of like, that's my cue to start actually forming an opinion, if I haven't already. It's sort of like, then the countdown starts. And the way that I inform myself is typically I will go to the pro and contra sites, because typically with these things there's like a ja and a nein site, or if there isn't, then typically you can go to a lot of these things are pretty split politically. So you can typically go to like the SVP website, see what they're saying about it, then you go to the FDP, the Mitte, and so on. And you kind of get, okay, this is what, this is what they're saying about it. And then depending on, it's a matter of where do I line up on the reasons why they want certain things or don't want certain things. But it's definitely a process, and it definitely takes time.
Yeah,
for sure. I think I said that for a vote like it also depends on the topic, because some topics are more or less kind of similar to other topics that have come up before, and you're a bit familiar with them, whereas other topics are just like, what? I didn't even know this existed,
So you don't always know what it's going to be before it happens.
No, like when I first hear of the topic in the media or something, I'm like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing, Like this time around we voted on, well, what did we vote on? I have them.
Yeah, it was 4 things, right?
Here.
In the national vote.
So it was
we had
the first one was the ban on animal testing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the second one was the no more tobacco ads not no more tobacco ads, but no more tobacco ads that can be viewed by children in Switzerland.
Yep.
There was the one about the stamp duty, or the tax on big business. And the fourth one was whether the government should increase its funding to the media.
Right. Yeah. Do we want to show quickly what the results of those were?
We can. I can show here.
So
actually, what I did was I think I saved. Yes, here. I saved a link showing what the expected. I'll try and open this on a new tab.
Yep.
So that's what the expected result was. Don't know if I can blow that up.
Should be able to. Yeah. So you shared this before the actual vote was finalized, right?
Yeah, this is what the expected. I guess they did, as they usually do, the GFS Bern organization, or association. They do these, what are they called? Like a poll.
Yeah.
And this is what they, this was their prognosis on how it was going to turn out. So the initiative for the tobacco, removing tobacco advertisements from places that children can see, that according to them passed. The financing of media with taxpayer money was very close, but according to the prognosis, it did not pass. And the stamp tax did not pass either by a larger margin. And the animal testing abolition was completely a no. Well, close to 70% no.
Yeah. So they weren't too far off, right?
It seems that they... So now I'm going to pull up the actual results. That's the cantonal. I think it was this one. Yeah, this one has all of them.
Are these the results? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first one is the Stempelsteuer, so the tax on big business.
Yeah, so that's the stamp tax duty.
Mm-hmm.
The 60%, 62% no.
What did
I
you?
wrestled with that one.
Oh, where's that? Oh, did you?
Yeah. I mean, because we all want business to pay more money, especially big business, not so much smaller business, but big business
Right.
to pay more money to help us fund everything. I mean, especially healthcare. But at the same time, I mean, if we have to be competitive as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if every country did it, then fantastic. But if we're one of the few that do it, then
Mm-hmm.
business can easily pack up and move elsewhere. So that's why it's not such a simple thing.
Yeah. It has to be to the benefit of all at the end of the day. Like, if you
Absolutely.
you can conceptualize that taxing big business just on the fact that they're big. Like, I believe the exact the way it works is if they have capital gains over 1 million, then everything that goes beyond that million gets taxed. I believe 1%.
1%. That's the thing that I caught on to, though, because I was looking into it a bit, and I was wondering why the left were pushing so hard to keep the tax. And I for the longest time I wasn't.
I would expect that.
Well, I didn't want to, because the simple answer would be something like the left are generally more for big state, and they want to keep the keep the money flowing into the state's treasury.
That is not at all how I see it, but okay.
No? Okay.
No.
I mean, that for me it tends to be a kind of a cliche among the left that they are for big state, and well, you can't have a big state without money. It literally needs money.
Do you think that someone who identifies with the left would say that, like you're saying it?
No.
Okay, so are you like how I imagine someone who identifies with the left would see this is that they don't want big state, that they don't actually want to adhere to just a central government, and they'd want the power to not be centralized but to be spread among the population.
Mm-hmm.
But are you insinuating that would be like making the government more, how can I say this? Like, from what I just said, do you see that as well?
That they... Well, I look, the point is, the left for me, they want to... Oh, this can go into a very interesting direction and a very big, long, deep rabbit hole. To try and put it in a nutshell, to me, the left see it as their sort of almost like a moral obligation or moral duty to shape mankind, to shape society.
Sure.
So they kind of see a lot of times it's called a utopia. They see a sort of utopian end, and they are very much of the opinion that, well, if we just change the environment around human beings enough, we can basically have humanity reach this point, this utopian destination. And conservatism doesn't really go in that direction. Conservatism is a lot more kind of pragmatic. It's sort of like it's where, if you go back far enough in history, you have the whole fallen state thing, where they sort of look at humanity as, okay, not necessarily good or bad, they just are.
Mhm.
And basically, we don't want to shape humanity. All we want to do is just mitigate the not so good parts of humanity, and freedom is more important than reaching our utopia. So it's
Mhm. Yeah.
if you're coming from these two different perspectives, then immediately, like if you want to what's it called, socially engineer people, right, which is essentially like a very strong thing on the left. Social engineering, you're not going to be able to accomplish that without huge structures, huge systems, huge that all need a lot of huge finance behind them.
Yeah.
You know? And that's, I mean, what else is there besides, for example, academia and government that can fulfill that? You know, I mean, if I was, I've talked with some people who were out and out Marxists, right? They claimed, I'm a Marxist. Okay, cool. Let's have a chat. And it was kind of
Jason, are you a Marxist? Then we can do
Come
a
on.
recreation.
closet Marxist.
I'd probably say, like, there are a few things in my head I was probably disagreeing with, because I'm probably libertarian. But when I think about, as I said, I wrestled with this tax because I would like to tax big business, because when I think about, if we're talking about taking extreme cases, if I look at, say, Jeff Bezos taking flights of, billionaires taking flights of fancy into outer space, and we have 150 million people, homeless in the world, or I mean, there's a lot of rundown hospitals even in first world countries, and if you think of country towns in Australia, it's extreme, and that revenue, apparently the forecasted revenue that will be lost for the government is 250 million. That is quite a lot of money.
Yep.
Yep.
But I do understand where you're coming from, but I don't know what I'd be, left or right. For me, I think I'm a libertarian, somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
It depends. Sorry.
Identifying as a libertarian is very interesting, because I think you would as well, right, Emmanuel? And I would also as well identify as a libertarian, because I wouldn't feel comfortable in saying, like, oh yeah, I identify with the left or the right. It feels like if you identify as libertarian, you're kind of in the middle, which is maybe the most awkward place to be in, because no one is really your friend unless, like, if you meet a fellow libertarian, it's like meeting a unicorn out in the wild. It's like, yay, we can be friends. But yeah, it is sort of a tough conundrum, because while you want things to be as fair as possible, so you don't want to unjustly, not necessarily punish someone, but you could call this tax a punishment the way it is, right? Or at least it would feel like that to the company getting taxed. You don't want to punish someone for being really successful, but at the same time, it does appear to be a lot better for everyone when they carry more of the load, because they can.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
guess it's the thing of, if you have a kind of progressive tax system, right? That's kind of what this is, because it doesn't kick in until there's a threshold, right?
It's
a million,
quite high that it
a million
kicks in,
francs,
right?
So.
Like, the amount of companies that this actually affects is minuscule compared to all of them.
I think if you still, what I said earlier about the jobs as well, you want companies to come to Switzerland. I mean, our largest cities are international cities, and we want to keep advertising that to the world. And I mean, if you look at the other vote that we had about the testing on animals, on one side it tugs on your heartstrings, because no one wants to hurt an animal.
Yep.
But if I ask you, what's Switzerland's biggest export?
Yeah. Pharmaceuticals.
It's pharmaceuticals, exactly. In my great canton of Basel.
Yeah.
So, it's sad, but if we just outlaw, if we just ban it, business will move to other friendlier locations to operate. And at the end of the day, we have to keep progressing with science. And unfortunately and sadly, my mother-in-law is going to hate me for saying this. We have to. My wife is also a vegetarian. I understand it. I get it. But I think it was a no-brainer that it got defeated. I mean, it was resoundingly defeated. So hopefully that topic is put to rest now, because apparently that was the 5th time that's been up for a vote.
Mm-hmm.
It probably won't be the last either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends what happens.
I think a lot of these things are done from maybe again, it's speaking a bit to this utopian thing, you know, of we don't want any war, we don't want any suffering, and it's like, yeah, nobody wants that. Yeah. But I think the split comes in regarding, okay, how do you get there?
Yeah.
Right. And that's I think where the difference begins is you have some people who actually quite literally say by any means necessary, right?
Right. That's a very good point. Like, I think you could call that lazy in a way. If you just imagine in your head, like, oh yes, this is the way things should be. Like, we shouldn't be hurting animals. Like, of course it would be nice if we were to live in a world where no animals would get hurt by humans. But you can't just make a law saying, okay, no animals can get hurt now.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why they do, and you have to solve those reasons first.
Yeah.
And in this initiative, you could plainly see, at least I could plainly see, in my opinion, that they didn't do nearly enough legwork to fix those things that were that we rely on with those animals.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Like all the medications, all the cosmetics. One can say, nah. We don't need our women to look pretty.
Cosmetics?
I don't know. I'm looking pretty old these days.
You should try that L'Oreal.
Well, let's not put the brakes on it just yet.
I believe the law also said you couldn't import. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it also said we couldn't even import the stuff. So
it's like you're completely. I don't even know if the makers of that initiative or the signers knew just how much, like, we rely on animal testing. Like, how many products need that in.
Maybe they're just really, really healthy and good-looking people, or bad-looking people. I don't know, but.
You,
or they just don't care.
Me in the last part.
Naturally looking people. That's it.
I'm over 40 now, so it's just all downhill. There's also some pretty stringent rules around the animal testing already in Switzerland.
Exactly, yeah. I don't think you can get much more stringent.
No.
I mean, there may be a point to be made that those rules are not being kept properly, the ones that are there. And for instance, the initiative could have been that those rules are more strictly enforced, or higher penalties are put into place when they're broken. But right now it is put in place that essentially any negativity to animals in testing is minimized as much as possible, in a nutshell. And then they also had this this clause which I found unintelligible, like, to do with human testing.
Oh yeah.
So they want to ban human testing as well.
Yeah.
So you have literally no more medication that you can give to anyone.
Well, you can't test it on any. Well, maybe plants. You can test it on plants.
Yeah, but you can't get medication approved without testing on a human first. No.
Yeah. They'd have to change the regulation and say you can test it on plants.
Schweiz ohne Medikamente. Angenommen.
Our economy would really take a dive there. Forget about that tax on the big business. We'd be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
There's our utopia.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Like we're talking about stringent rules before. How stringent are the rules now going to be? There's another thing I thought about. I wrestled with as a libertarian: the banning of signage around smoking. I'm not a smoker. I've never smoked, and I never will smoke. I have nothing against it as a libertarian. Like, if you want to smoke, go for your life.
As much of it as you
but-
have.
Sorry.
As short as it will be if you're a smoker.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a smoker, so
But yeah, I think there has to also be some personal responsibility that we have to educate our kids not to smoke as well. But then I guess how much influence do parents have? I mean, my kids are young. You could probably tell me more about that, Emmanuel. Your kids are a lot, they're teenagers now.
I don't think they smoke.
No, I'm not talking about smoke. I'm talking about the influence that we have on them. I mean, there's goods and bads. I mean, you can be really, what's the word? Not negative, but maybe ghoulish and say that, smokers do the country a service because they die a lot earlier and we spend less on them in their older years. But at the same time,
they boost the economy.
Exactly. But that's,
They're a net positive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe we should vote for more smoking.
That is a ghoulish way of looking at it. It doesn't really affect me, like the science. It probably is a good thing. Maybe there could be some more positive signage around than cigarettes. I don't know.
Currently, I don't actually see that much advertising for tobacco products at all anywhere. Especially not pure cigarettes. Like I can't remember the last time I've seen a cigarette advertisement.
Neither can I.
In the
actually.
Bahnhof, in a cinema, in pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
The only thing I've seen advertising for that was a little bit more overt were cigarette alternatives, which is actually the reason why I got off of cigarettes and started using those alternatives. And I've seen ever since those came to market with also their advertising campaigns, the switch from previous smokers to these alternatives, which are also unhealthy but significantly better than cigarettes, it was pretty substantial. So in a way, that advertising actually did help a lot. And to date, I've never seen a single child with any of those things that were being advertised. On the other side, I saw in one article that there was a significant amount of young people that were being affected by tobacco advertising. So like a certain percentage of people who started smoking from a certain age did so partly because of tobacco advertising. I can't remember the specifics of it, and I also don't know if it's really reliable. But I also find that kind of unbelievable in a way, because I don't think that many young people start smoking because of advertising. I think they start smoking because people they know smoke.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah.
a lot more. Yeah, definitely.
Or they see it like in movies, and there's other sources.
Right? Are you gonna ban smoking?
Yeah, what are you
in
gonna do
movies?
there? Yeah.
Like, to me, that would be much more effective on getting a kid hooked on tobacco or interested in tobacco if they see someone in a movie who looks super cool smoking it.
Yeah.
That to me is advertising. Maybe not for a specific company, but
Yeah. Well, it passed, right?
no.
We
Oh yes,
Yeah,
it
it
did.
did.
Oh yes, it did.
can share that.
That was the only one that passed. If I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Yeah.
So the initiative for is that on screen now?
Will be.
So the initiative for banning tobacco advertisements passed with 56%, 56.6%. The
Stempelabgaben.
stamp tax duty, it was a no by 62%. The Maßnahmenpaket for median, it's funny that they call it a Maßnahmenpaket, isn't it?
Everyone loves the word Maßnahmen now.
Yeah, it's like everything's a measure.
Everyone voted no just because there was Maßnahmen for it.
Probably like. That was a no, 54.6%, and the experimentation on animals was almost 80% no.
Which I don't think I've ever seen a vote
80%.
be that unanimous. 80%. I mean, it's
That
not.
was huge.
I would be surprised if it was any more than that, to be honest. Because it was very clear to me that, like, no, that's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
I thought there would have been more that would have voted yes to that. I was really shocked when I saw those numbers.
Really?
Yeah, but
Is it
I also
because-
live in
Mhm.
I live in Basel, and well, I Basel Landschaft, but I'm right on the border of both half cantons. And as you know, Basel traditionally Basel is very progressive. So that's sort of my area of where I live, and what I read and hear and speak with people about.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see what the percentages are per canton, because Bern, I think, is also quite progressive.
Well, that's further down here. One of the interesting things about this vote too was there was an early trend in the polling that hinted at a kind of voting revolt against anything that the federal government was for. And it seems like the turnout actually resonated or showed that was very possibly the case. It definitely looks like, I think they said this is the second time that so many so many topics were positively or promoted by the federal government that were turned down by the people. I was reading up a bit on this, and the gist of it that I got was that typically people show a pretty high amount of faith and trust in what the federal government and the parliament says they are for. They sort of like, okay, I guess they know what they're talking about. That's probably a good way to go. And it's very rarely that that so many of the things that the federal government or the parliament is for are turned down. It shows a kind of a mistrust, at the very least, a mistrust in the competency of the federal government and the parliament. And in this case, it was pretty much across the board. I think there was only one that went the way of the government.
That was the animal.
The animal one, right. The most extreme one is the one, that I guess people were like, I guess the government is right on that one.
Yeah. They would have serious reason for mistrusting the government if the government wanted that to pass.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
There was also the most problematic vote in 2014 for the government when, what was that one where they wanted to put a halt on, was it new immigrants entering Switzerland?
The mass immigration initiative?
Yeah.
That's it, the mass immigration initiative in 2014 that got up by, what was it, 50.6%, and it made the government work real hard with Europe to find solutions. And I think even, what is it, eight years on now, has it been solved yet?
They've never implemented it.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think the vote from Sunday was a show of mistrust in the government, as you say, or do you think the arguments were very clearly laid out and it was sort of logical how it panned out, or what do you read from it? This is just my take on it, is that over the last 2 years, there's been an abnormal amount of distrust sort of building up in the population towards the government, and it's been from the entire socio-political spectrum. And I think you're always going to have people who are going to vote
party line. So you're gonna, the SP say they want this, so I want it too, or the SVP want this, I'm gonna vote it too, and so on. And I think what we've seen, especially in the last year, is people breaking ranks. People just like absconding from their traditional political alliances. And I mean, that's what I get from having met with hundreds and hundreds of people over the last well, not this year, but 2021, and just seeing people from every spectrum of the political sides, and they're all just unhappy with the way that the federal government is operating. Whether they were
point? Sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to tell you at which point I started to not mistrust the government, but really lose faith in the government. And that was when my 7-year-old son was put in a mask at school, and then he had to do gym class indoors in a gym, running around with a mask on. That made zero sense.
Yeah.
And that really, as I said, not that I mistrust it. We have a beautiful democracy here in Switzerland, and I'm incredibly grateful to be able to participate in it. But I understand that the government had to take X amount of measures with COVID, but they really took it. For me, it was taken too far when my son had to wear a mask to school at that young age. I mean, it was just yeah.
And I think that's a good point, is that everyone had their red line, right?
Yeah.
Or not everyone, actually. There's some people who would like that red line like way out there. It's like, okay, fine, if you want to chop off my head, then that's where I draw the line. But until then. But definitely people had different thresholds, right? Where they were just like, okay, this is absurd. And then the people they knew were like, yeah, I can live with that. And then something happened to them and they reached their threshold. And then it was like, I'm done, right? And I think that's been just building up over the course of the months as the measures got more and more draconian and absurd. And then when we had the certificates coming in, I know that there were lots of people who were certified for all intents and purposes, were like, this is insane, this is nuts. And I know people who had their certificate who said, I'm not using it. Like, I have it, but I'm not going to use it to go to a restaurant or to a pub or something like that because it's just wrong. And that I found to be shocking, but in a good way. I was like, wow, But
it frustrated me. I mean, I was very pro-vaccination for myself as a libertarian. Everyone else should be free to do whatever they want. So I took it willingly, and it would frustrate me. I was at a restaurant with my kids having coffee and cake in the afternoon, and my sister-in-law, who is not vaccinated, walked past, and we waved, and I was like, oh, come in. And then she said, oh, no, I can't. I'm like,
yeah. That's another part of the news we can share today, is that since as of midnight last night, the certificate requirement is done for.
I'd be interested to know from both of you how that experience was, like when you heard the news, and how in your circles that you've met since then, how they've responded to it.
Oh, it's too new for me. I haven't really...
It hasn't sunk in?
No, I mean for the circles part. For like...
Well, for instance, at work. Like, how have they responded to it?
I haven't really heard anything about it other than... the certificate thing was not necessary at work anyway, but
the mask, mainly the masks.
Yeah, the mask. I mean, we got a memo today saying masks are no longer required. Although, if you are still feeling the need to wear one, you are more than welcome to. But
so that was pretty much business as usual. Just mask off.
Take the face diaper off and show your face.
You're back to it. What about you, Jason?
I I was quite happy not showing my face. I mean, look at it.
Come on.
No, I was. Look, there's a little bit of relief because there's still some measures, and the fact that they're keeping the infrastructure in place until to see what happens after the warmer months. It's like I don't want to get too excited because I don't want to let everything totally feel like it's back to normal because we could be in this similar situation in a few months. But I'm just really happy that, as I said, that my son doesn't have to wear a mask. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I'm happy that I can go in. The amount of times that I've gone to walk in the Coop and gone, oh no, and then it's like you rustle and it's like, oh, I'm sure I've had this mask like for 3 years.
You have the go-to mask that's just been recycled over the last 2 years.
You open it, a butterfly flies out, or a moth.
Yeah.
It's breeding.
Yeah.
I actually had an idea for so the other thing that's been dropped, as Jason has alluded to, is the mask requirement, except for public transport vehicles. So if you are in the train station or you're waiting on the platform, no mask. But as soon as you step onto the bus, tram, train, whatever, then you have to put a mask on. Which, funnily enough, before the announcement was made, the SBB, I believe it was the spokesperson or so, was pretty pissed off about that because he said, well, that gives people the idea that public transport is more dangerous regarding infection and so on than going to the restaurant, bar, or to the shops, and he said which has never been proven to be the case. So
yeah, but that's not necessarily actually what the point is.
No, but that's obviously the insinuation or the inference from that is, well,
I don't think how I understand what the reasoning behind still leaving the mask mandate in public transport is just because of the transmissibility between geographical locations. It's not like you're more likely to get infected in public transport. It's just you're more likely to bring that to another canton and thus spread the virus quicker.
But then people are driving.
It's probably less effective in a car because of just the amount of people in the train.
Okay.
I see both sides to that. When you think of a busy tram in the morning or a busy train, but then if I go to my local Coop on a Saturday or at lunchtime, it's sometimes, especially in the fruit section, it is heavy. Everyone's hands are on top of each other trying to grab the best.
It's true, yeah.
Restaurants on a Saturday night, nightclubbing, I mean.
And then they all get on the train anyway, and they've all mingled already. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's I mean, we've got a fantastic, probably one of the best train networks in the world here in Switzerland. I think twice about going anywhere now in Switzerland because of the having to wear a mask for an hour or 2 hours on a Swiss train. I will drive because I don't have to have a mask on. I'm sure I'm not the only one that takes that route. And I mean, if we want to care about the environment, we want more people on trains and less cars on the roads, don't we? So it's...
Yeah, I haven't gone with public transportation in ages. I don't know when the last time was. I think it was when we went for a hike. Leona and we went for a hike, and then when we went to
that was
Randa. Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, since 2 years, I almost don't take public transport at all anymore.
Yeah. Today was the first full day where the measures were lifted, and so my experience of the day was really interesting in the morning. First off, in the train station, still seeing a lot of people wearing masks, probably out of habit. I'm assuming that most of them were. And today I had an interview at a company, and everyone there was quite happy. They seemed to be quite happy to not be wearing masks right now. It was also talked about a little bit. But coming back home and putting the mask back on just for the train just made me be like, okay, this is even more annoying than it used to be. just because it's this one isolated place now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it seems more arbitrary than ever. Just that.
Yeah, because it's even more of a fringe case.
Yeah.
Where you have to put the mask on, and of course there's also the mandate in hospitals.
Yes.
Right. And in
any healthcare facilities.
homes, but I don't think we go.
But
there
apparently,
too often.
if you're a patient, you don't have to.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's any healthcare facilities, you still have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
If you're a patient, you don't have to wear a mask. I thought you have to.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
If you're like if you're being cared for at the hospital, you're in your room.
Oh, okay. If you're an inpatient, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was asking because I'm doing some physio on my knee in a local hospital here, and I had to wear a mask. Okay.
Okay.
In that case, you're good.
Yeah.
Well, let me just show you guys. Well, so here we have the cantonal results, which are kind of interesting, but I don't think Jason can't see the stuff we're looking at, right? Unless he's actually looking at the stream. But
Yeah, are you watching the stream right now?
But then that's delayed, right?
Slightly, not that much.
Well, I'll describe it as good as I can. So the Tobacco Initiative, this is kind of, to me, it's something that I see a lot, and that is that the Waldstätten, or the sort of the central cantons of Switzerland, and then typically center to what would it be, eastern cantons, vote a certain way, and then typically center to western cantons typically vote another way. And in the Tobacco Initiative, we had the Waldstätten and then a few of the Ausserrhoden, Thurgau, and so on, voting against the against the initiative, right? And then so the Tobacco Initiative was pulled through mostly by the western cantons, and then Bern, Wallis, Tessin, and Zurich, and then a couple slightly in favor. Aside from that, the Stempelabgaben, so the this is the.
There was one canton that was for that.
The stamp tax duty is basically Switzerland is a sea of red, except for Zug.
That's surprising.
Well, Zug is very progressive when it comes to business.
Apparently.
They have the lowest tax in the country. So they are very pro
Probably a
low
lot of
tax.
business people there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And funnily enough, or not so funnily enough, Bern is the darkest red. So Bern was absolutely against getting rid of the stamp tax duty, which is not surprising at all. Jura was with them, and Solothurn and Basel.
Yeah.
Massen, the media subsidy was pretty much red, except for the from Fribourg on westward.
So
the French
wanted it.
Yeah, the French cantons were for subsidizing the media from taxpayers' money, which is not too surprising for me, at least.
Maybe they watch more TV there. Jason, how much mainstream media do you consume in like TV?
Wow. Not a lot, to be honest. I have 2 young kids. I worked as well. I have commitments to the local AFL club here in Basel. So there's not a lot of TV. It's probably bad. I consume most from seeing the signs, engaging with people. Also on Twitter, sometimes watch SRF at home. Just like from here, there, and everywhere. But then when it comes to the really important stuff, such as the voting, then I will do like a little bit more research and make sure I understand what I'm voting on. And if I clearly don't understand, or if there's things that I'm not so sure about, then I won't vote just for the sake of voting.
Right.
But yeah, that doesn't really help with answering your question. But I do apologize. I have to get going soon. I do have to put young kids to bed.
Well, it was really great having you on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely want to have you again. I think we're going to have a chat about libertarianism.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
I've been chomping at the bit to chat about some of the libertarian values with someone, because I find it very interesting, but there's some things that I really want to pick a libertarian's brain on.
So we're going into the more philosophical discussion there.
Yeah, for sure. My libertarian values can be extreme. So yeah, it'll be a good chat. Can I take an opportunity to say hello to my beautiful wife Audrey and my kids Bailey and Lagatha?
Absolutely.
It's in there now.
You did it.
I've said it
Can't say
anyway.
no. But
I could say like.
I know, absolutely.
All right.
He the man.
Fantastic.
Thank you for freeing this wonderful man up for us to chat with, and thanks for being on.
Thanks very much, guys. Have a great evening. I look forward to hearing more of your podcast. You got great synergy, and it's a great podcast. Congratulations on it. Well done.
Thanks a lot,
so much.
mate.
That means a lot.
Have a good evening.
No worries.
Have a good evening.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
So, I guess I can hang that up.
Yeah, sure. All right, so there was one more.
Yes.
So the last
Where was it?
item on the list there.
Close it? Oh, here.
Right. I think it was up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Wow.
So this one, that's the initiative for the animal testing.
Okay. Well, I'm happy about this because if I'd seen any canton there in blue, I would not want to go there.
Let's have a look.
I would be concerned.
Yeah.
It is still kind of funny that 20% of people did want it in.
Almost 30.
Almost 30.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like now we got to figure out who the 30% are. Interestingly enough, Tessin actually voted 31.5% yes. But here's something else that I wanted to bring up, and I think this is quite interesting. So this is the vote that happened in the canton of Bern, so not a national level. It was a taxation on vehicles that are not
Right.
that are not
Right.
green. And so the end result here, as you can see, is abgelehnt, which means it was turned down. So it ended with a no.
Yeah.
And here we have the canton of Bern, all the Gemeinde, so all the communes in the canton of Bern. And I have blotched out the... Don't look at the other one. Okay.
I'm not looking at anything.
I've blotched out on purpose the percentage.
Ooh.
Because I want you... I thought this is interesting. Like, so look at this map.
How do you know I didn't look at it already?
I don't know, but
I didn't.
let's see.
Okay.
So look at how red the canton of Bern is towards this topic.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what I'm gonna ask you? Maybe.
No, actually I don't.
Okay, what I'm wondering is if you look at this map and you see like, okay, that's a heck of a lot of red, right?
Yeah.
There's a heck of a lot of no, and a lot of dark red too.
Well, who voted blue?
Well, by looking at this map, what percentage do you think? You know it's been turned down,
Yeah.
but by looking at this map, can you make a guess of by what percentage?
Well, for transparency's sake, I did see it was around 50% for the entirety of Switzerland.
No, this is only Canton of Bern.
Oh, right. Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually I have no idea. I'm guessing... Okay, so the percentage for the entirety of Bern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like looking at that map, you see how much red there is?
Well, if you're putting this up, it's not going to be close to 50%. It's probably going to be the neighborhood of like 70 to 90% against.
Okay, is that what you think?
No, I need to say a
70 to
specific
30.
number.
70 to 30.
If I'm within 10%, what do I get?
I don't know. Oh, wait. I mean, looking at a map like this.
I'm going with 85%.
85% no?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to be something crazy like 98%. What? That's... Wow. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because Bern is progressive.
Yes, and population size.
What do you
So,
mean?
here's the thing, right? We have, in the democracy that is Switzerland, we have these language, I don't know how to call them. That basically, a lot of the times, the German-speaking part of Switzerland is voting differently than the French part of Switzerland, right? We have this kind of, yeah. But not only that, so we have that kind of, what do you call it? Like a factor involved in the democracy. But there's another factor, and I think this factor plays an even bigger role. I think the factor is city versus rural. If you look at this map, like, you know, and I don't blame you whatsoever. When I saw this, like, I've seen these maps a lot. I've seen cities. So anyone who's looking at this, for example, just to be clear, this dark blue commune in the middle is Stadt Bern. So that's the city of Bern. Okay. So that voted yes very strongly. And then you have the agglomeration of Bern, which voted yes predominantly. And essentially, the further you go out, and this, for example, this is Biel, this right here. Okay. So another city, right? And this is Thun, another city. So you see where I'm getting at. Basically, the larger the cities, they vote very differently from the rural communities. This is one of the most stark examples of this that I've seen, and for good reason, because the topic is actually taxing non-E vehicles.
Yeah.
Which, the countryside, like every tractor, every like, you know.
I'm noticing at the very top there's someone that voted
I don't know what that is. I wonder if that's a lake.
Someone is very alone up there.
That's in the direction of Solothurn, isn't it? Or, but that's something that I thought was very interesting. That, I mean, look at that, 47 to 53%.
Well, honestly,
but
I have to say that my original guess there was probably. I could have then, if I thought about it more, it actually makes sense. It's quite inaccurate, because I myself, when I was voting for this, I was actually on the fence about it. So my initial impression of this was that I would be against it, because I personally don't think that we're ready to switch entirely to electric. So I don't see it being fair to put extra pressure when we're not even technically there yet. Although from reading through it then, it surprised me. I read through the booklet. I didn't look too much online about this. Okay. But reading through the booklet, or should I say more skimming through it,
I want me second beer.
It didn't actually mention really anything about electric vehicles. And from what I saw there was, for vehicles that are actually that run fuel, but are still very low emissions in comparison to other vehicles, they still get taxed negatively from this. They don't benefit from this change. So even if you're actually trying to be environmentally friendly and get a car that is as clean as possible, but still runs fuel, because right now fuel is still the most accessible thing to do, and for a lot of people the only option. You're still impacted negatively by this. So to me, the line there was set wrong. The line there was set too far against. Well, I should say the threshold was too sensitive. They needed to set the threshold to be a little bit more forgiving, and then perhaps as the market changes when it comes to how affordable different kinds of vehicles are that are low emissions, and how reliable they are, then that threshold could change with further referendums.
But that's the thing about this kind of policy change or desired policy change, is that this is again one of those examples of the left seeing a utopian goal, and it's again and again, it's really a matter of by any means necessary. It's like, we have that goal, and even if we have to, screw with the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, it's for the good, even for them. We know what's best for them, and they will thank us later on.
From the
we're saving the environment. I mean, how much better can you get than that? We're saving the environment for their children.
When it comes
to the
vote about the animal rights, you could say, yeah, I agree with you there. But here, this isn't by any means necessary. This is a pretty, they could have said yes to this, and most people could have gone on with their lives, albeit at a disadvantage, which shouldn't have been set on them, in my opinion.
You know how much I pay already in vehicle tax?
No, I don't.
Over $1,200 a year.
Which is a bloody lot, and I think this would have added on something in the ballpark of 150.
Possibly.
Something like that.
But anything added on for me, I'm already paying somewhere around 1,250. What was it? Yeah, 1,250, 1,300 per year, just to operate my vehicle.
Right.
That,
So you would you say that is very extreme, not just unjust, but also extremely?
I think it's an absurd amount of money to have to pay to it's my property, right? I've purchased this asset, this vehicle, this carriage, and I cannot use this thing unless I pay the government $1,200 a year. And that's on top of, by the way, the fuel taxation. Fuel taxation in this country is massive.
True. Especially after the pandemic. We're saying after.
After. Pushed. But
imagine.
And the fuel prices keep increasing.
Right.
Now I was just looking at, yesterday I was driving, and it was one of the places, diesel, $1.92. That's like a few months ago it was like 175, 173. And now it's 192.
That's crazy.
So the fact is that I look at those prices and I'm wondering, why the heck was that hiked up? And some people say, well, it's the price of oil fluctuating. I looked at it before and it wasn't. So I don't know why those prices are increasing the way they are, but no, I already pay $1,200 a year in just to be able to operate my vehicle, and then on top of that, I have to maintain it. I have to put fuel in it. I mean, it's like, and you want to start taxing me more for being able to use that vehicle? A vehicle that's how old is it?
You do have quite a large and fuel-hungry vehicle, right?
It's
Not
large.
Inefficient, but
it's pretty efficient.
Yeah.
It actually. So the previous vehicle we had was Opel Zafira, 2.2 liter petrol engine, and now we have a Volkswagen van. The model is, I don't know, it's like Team or something. It's got a 2 liter diesel engine, so it's actually got a slightly smaller engine than our last vehicle did.
Which is kind of crazy considering the sizes of
Well, it's diesel, so it's got a different torque ratio, and it can pull better. and it does use a bit more fuel, especially when driving around town and stuff like that. But when I'm driving, it also depends how you drive those vehicles. You can be throttling it a lot more, or just like let it roll up to stops and stuff like that. But what I notice is that like on long drives, like on the highway and so on, it's actually more efficient than the smaller Opel Zafira.
That's impressive.
But anyway, to this thing, I voted no for sure, because I know my circumstance, and this was definitely not in my what I viewed as in my benefit. And I know that a lot of people out there in the rural areas, you know, doing agriculture and stuff, this would affect them massively. And I just didn't think it was right.
So you looked at it sort of from an economical standpoint, just the impact that it would have on not only individuals but on the country as a whole.
Yeah. All this stuff, I got to be honest, I'm not too fond of the whole climate change narrative, the politicized climate change narrative. Regarding,
there's definitely a lot of fallacies being thrown around there. Yeah, I do think it's important to keep an eye on and to do what you can to lessen your impact. But when it comes to there's some things that are not actually that impactful when it comes to climate change as a whole, that are absolutely just blown way out of proportion. For instance, like these the straws, right? They switched from plastic to
metal
to
or paper.
Metal I'd be more in favor for, although the cleaning is an issue. But like things like this, like that makes the amount that you're changing there is almost nothing.
Yeah. Especially, this is the thing, right? Especially in a country like Switzerland, where, I mean, we separate our garbage so incredibly well, you know.
Switzerland does such a great job in so many of these aspects, like with animal rights, with climate, and of course we can do better in some areas, but just throwing everything at the wall to get perfect is not the way we want to be doing it. And when it comes to vehicle emissions, I do think that it's important to switch to renewables at some point, and perhaps we should even start to do it now. But currently, just financially, it's not accessible to the majority of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a cost-benefit analysis that has to be done on everything, right?
There's that as well.
And but I don't know if we want to go down the climate change rabbit hole. Because that's
just in general, that's what this was for.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But I wanted to bring this out again back to the divide, because this is a massive divide that you're seeing right here between cities and rural areas. I mean, it could not get any clearer than that, seeing it depicted like that. And this brings up a question. In a democracy, oh man, I don't think we can go into this, because I actually wanted to make something really about democracy itself, but
We're gonna just have to talk about democracy in an episode.
I know.
Just to get it off your chest.
It's a huge topic, and I have some I have a grudge against people in the United States who talk about direct democracy. Who
There's
honestly
absolutely nothing direct about their democracy.
No. What they do is, okay, I'm gonna say this. I recently watched an episode of the Timcast show, and I don't remember exactly what they were discussing at the time, but somehow they went into direct democracy. And I was like, okay, I'm all ears. And they just started bagging it out.
Yeah.
Just butchering it. And I don't remember exactly what he was saying. I could find the clip again and play it, that portion. But not a single good thing was said about direct democracy.
Yeah.
And instead of, I wonder. We're talking about this thing called direct democracy. What country in the world uses that thing? Oh, that's right, Egypt. What? Like, I couldn't believe it.
What?
Yeah, like in Egypt, where they direct democracy, blah blah blah. And I'm like,
It's not exactly what it's known for.
no, I don't know.
I'm at least to me, I wasn't aware of this.
I think it might have had something to do with a referendum they had or something like that. But as far as I know, Egypt is not a direct democracy. But that's the thing, is like people hear about referendum or something like that, and then they say, yeah, that's like direct democracy. Therefore, whatever. But they had nothing good to say about it. And this is if Jason's still listening, buddy, this is something that I've heard libertarians speak about in very negative terms, and a lot of Americans who praise the American republic, right? Because technically, United States of America is a republic, and they say, yeah, well, we're a republic, we're not a democracy, and we're definitely not a direct democracy, because at the end of the day, democracy is just mob rule. That's their go-to line. I don't know how many times I've heard that from Americans.
It's a way of putting it.
And some Canadians. But I really want to have a conversation with Tim Pool. You're probably not gonna ever
Eventually.
hear this.
Eventually.
Maybe. But damn it, man. I mean, if you guys are gonna talk about direct democracy, let me try this for a sec.
I thought you wanted to do this in an episode.
Yeah, not now, right?
No. I don't
But-
think. Well, first off, if we were to talk about it now in depth, like this would go on until tomorrow. You probably still need more time.
Yeah. I mean, show this here. Hang on. I'm going to do it again. Okay?
Dude.
I'm going to do it again. If you want to look up direct democracy in Google, there you are. There's the search. The first link is the Wikipedia. Now, I know Wikipedia is whatever, but look at what it highlights. The pure form of direct democracy. This is
I
probably
wasn't
too
aware
small.
of this. This is cool.
Zoom. The pure form of direct democracy exists only in the Swiss cantons of Appenzell Innerrhoden and Glarus. The Swiss Confederation is a semi-direct democracy, etc., etc., etc. Okay? This is like the thing that it highlights. And if you go to the top where the table of contents are, examples: early Athens, Switzerland. I mean, if you are going to talk about direct democracy, look, there. Landesgemeinde. Okay?
We're doing pretty well for it, I would say.
That's the thing. We have to change topic, because otherwise you're not going to be able to stop me.
Like we're going to leave the cliffhanger there.
Okay, let's look at this fun picture. While we're here.
I did not check these, so
Oh, I love this one. Mainstream journalism basics. Oh, they're learning how to, do that stuff. Kiss ass. So yeah. Anyway, this is, I think, a real problem, because what this means is that it would be quite easy, and in fact it has happened many times, that the city population overrules the countryside.
yeah.
Sheerly just because the population size there is so dense.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this too is that this brings out the fact that people who live in cities have different values. They have different things of interest, things of not interest.
Well, that's not
right?
That's not very surprising, is it?
No.
No.
I mean, if you're living in a city, your concerns on a day-to-day basis are different from that of someone living in a rural community.
Yeah.
And that brings up the question, how just is it for essentially a topic like this to be voted on a cantonal level? And because you could flip it around right now and say, what if the vote had gone the other way, right? What if it had gone the way of, well, let's take it the way it went. So right now, the poor people in the city, or the rich people in the city, but poor people, you know, they didn't win, and they have to now abide by what the mob outside this city wanted.
Which is pretty interesting, actually, considering if you're someone who, if you look at the percentages here, the areas of blue are pretty freaking densely packed with yes, so that they could win, because there's so few of them. So if you are in one of those, you're pretty much going to be the black sheep there. And we both live in Canton Bern, which is right in the middle there. So, I mean, I guess we don't really live in a city. We live in a town.
Yeah, right there, sort of in the
village.
agglomeration. Yeah.
And is that the reason why we didn't vote like the city did, or do we live here because we don't think like people in the city?
That's a good question. It's a chicken egg thing again, isn't it?
'Cause I'm planning to move to the city.
Right.
But I do feel like there are definitely some aspects in which I wouldn't fit in the city.
The city will change you forever.
Yeah, you'd love that, wouldn't you?
No, I didn't.
No, I don't think you would, but hey, who knows?
But vice versa, had the city won here,
Yeah.
the city would have forced, well, the whole canton of Bern, which, excuse me, that's beer for you. The whole canton of Bern, which is majoritively, not necessarily population size wise, but the coverage of the canton on a geographical landscape, vast majority of it is agriculture.
Yeah.
And last I checked, agriculture is more or less important.
More.
I mean,
More.
more than less
Yeah.
important. But if here, I was thinking about this. What if the city had gotten what it wanted? What if it had finished with a yes?
That would, if you look at it from this view, a geographical view, that would seem unfair. That sort of the minority wins. Minority definitely geographically, but if you're just looking at per head basis, this changes nothing, right? Where you live doesn't have any say as long as you're in the canton.
Right, but by justice, I'm kind of talking about the base of democracy is that you have a chance, you have the opportunity to control your fate.
Yeah.
That's I'm just not getting into this in depth because again the time, but the basic notion is that I want to have an opportunity to have a say in my own fate. And the fate of me as a farmer living in the Oberland rests on different things than the fate of the average person living in the Bern city. And what I'm saying is what seems unjust about this is that the person in city Bern who probably cycles to work, you know, like just hops on a bicycle or gets on a tram or whatever, you know, for them it's like, meh, yeah, you know, it's like a no-brainer.
No.
But for me as a farmer, I'm like, I'm already struggling as it is. Every single $100 counts. So for me, it's just a completely cost-benefit analysis that goes on.
Well, to be fair, excluded from this would be trucks and agricultural vehicles.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
but maybe people in the rural countryside generally have more vehicles per capita than people in the city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, definitely if you're living outside of the city,
you got to get
cars
places.
are more necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to go back to horses or something. That'd be cool.
I think they're actually...
Subsidize horses.
They're much less efficient than petrol cars.
Are they?
I would imagine so, yeah.
You mean cost-wise?
I think emissions-wise. I think emissions-wise. Yeah, I mean...
I don't think so. What, farts?
Yeah, methane. Like one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gases are livestock.
Okay. Yeah.
Your cow is efficient for one thing and one thing only, and that's steak and milk.
Done.
Actually, I should say no, it's not efficient. It's the price we pay.
Glory.
So yeah, no, I definitely think it's a very interesting point you bring up. Off the top of my head, I couldn't suggest a solution.
No. This is something that I've seen over time.
I would call it unfair, though. I would call it unfair.
Or unjust. I mean, it's...
Depends what justice is defined by. If it's lawful, then is it just?
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of like the things that one person requires more for their, well-being, for their livelihood and so on, is being, how do you say?
Impeded.
Yeah, or someone else is having a say in that thing, and that someone else, their dog in the fight, or their connection to that thing is much less, how do you say? It's just of much lower importance to them. And then it's like, well, of course they're going to have a bias in that direction. And it goes, of course, for the rural guys too, in regards to things that people in the city want.
Exactly.
The people in the city.
And then it would look like a little bit more crazy, wouldn't it? Like, if they were voting in that, I don't know, what would farmers want that people in the city don't want? And something crazy.
No, the other way around.
Or you could do it that way
like,
as well.
What if people in the city wanted, for example, the whole thing regarding bicycle lanes and car lanes. You know how, like, in suburban or like built up areas, the city and so on, they're trying to cut down on the sort of like the vehicle traffic and make it more bicycle friendly, right? But in the countryside, it's almost the opposite, because again, they have their tractors, they have all these big vehicles, that's a priority.
Well, I think on the countryside, you don't need as much bicycle laneage. That's a word.
It is now.
Because there's just far less traffic. You can just have your bike on the road, and it's like...
Yeah. But like, for example, if the people in the city said, or the city and the agglomeration, they were like, yeah, we want to have a new fund, a new sort of portion of the tax that goes straight into creating bicycle lanes. Yeah. Right? And the people in the countryside would be like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and
or setting up a bunch of recharging stations for electric cars all around.
Exactly.
Like really rural
Makes
areas,
a lot more sense in the city.
Which they're probably going to have to do at some point.
Yeah.
If they actually want to make the change. Mm-hmm. But all of these farmers who have like diesel tractors and stuff, they're just going to be like...
They're going to be not on my dime, right?
Well, it will be.
But, so that's the thing is, to cut to the chase here for me, it's like direct democracy depends on a few things, but I think one of the most important things for direct democracy to work well and as intended is that things are voted on at the level, and really at the level in the location that that makes sense. So it requires a high degree of decentralization. Direct democracy without decentralization would only work if there were either no cities or no rural areas. Essentially, if the population that you're dealing with more or less all exist in the same sort of reality,
then they all have to agree with. No, they don't have to all agree with one another, but yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah.
They all have to go by tram. They all have, they all have to
It goes
basically
both
have the same
ways.
lifestyle.
It goes both ways, right? So like,
Or the other way,
sometimes the
yeah.
farmer might win, and sometimes the city
yeah.
dwellers might win, and it's just like, yeah, it'll affect them both differently for sure.
Yeah.
But the law has to be enacted upon everyone equally.
That's the thing, that a lot of these things don't necessarily have to be, for example, the bicycle lane thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing against
It doesn't necessarily have to be equally implemented everywhere.
Every
Yeah,
Gemeinde
exactly.
could have their own, every community could have, could have their own referendum or vote on whether or not they want to do it. And I think what you would end up having with a vote like that is you would have it like the bicycle lane thing.
Yeah.
You would have very big yes in the city centers, and then it would gradually, as you move away from them, it would be less yes, and then it would be more no,
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the right way to do these kind of things, and not like on a cantonal level. Yeah, you're affecting a lot of people both ways. You're affecting a lot of people who don't necessarily have the same lifestyle. They have different things that they value higher than others. So
Yeah. I have thought about, when it comes to this, that perhaps the voting pool should not just be restricted to those with a Swiss citizenship, but it should also perhaps have more filters on it. So for instance, if you're voting on taxation on vehicles, maybe the only people who should be able to vote for that are people with driver's licenses. Because if you have no driver's license, why the heck are you even voting on it? Like, yeah, your voice probably should matter, but I think effectively it matters less than someone who actually has to drive a car. For the reason you mentioned, if you're taking the tram every day, how is this going to affect you?
Yeah.
In regards, or in Vergleich.
Yeah. In the same way,
Well, like in regards to
equally.
how it's gonna affect them.
Yeah.
In comparison, like different things affect different groups of people in different ways, and the fact that it's just based off of some line that defines a canton or defines even a Gemeinde.
The problem with that is that you could do that with everything, right?
I think maybe it should be like the Pflegeinitiative. I thought that was kind of interesting that everyone had a vote on that, when it actually effectively only affects a certain group of people. Like, why is the entire country voting on something that's going to affect a very small amount of people in the country?
It's hard to say, because some things have a direct effect on, person A, but then they have indirect effects on person B, C, and D.
Correct. Like with the Stempelabgabe.
Yeah, or even the Pflegeinitiative thing.
Right.
Like the families of the people working in healthcare, I'm sure they would also be impacted to a degree.
Healthcare does affect everyone. Even if you don't actively have to be involved in a hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Who gets to vote for what and so on. I think one of the problems is that there is the divide in society is becoming larger in the way, like, for example, looking at this again, the lifestyles of the people in these red areas are just so different from the lifestyles in that blue area. And how do you consolidate that, when you're having all of these people vote on the same thing? To me, it's just either way it goes, you're kind of screwed. Like it's not going to please anyone really.
Yeah.
So
Could you go to the graphic of the whole of Switzerland regarding the vote, the color code?
For like this stuff.
I think that was that one there. So for the different things that we actually voted on, most of them hovered around 50%, and this one here was actually quite surprisingly not so centered. Definitely the animal one wasn't, and if you go to the next one, that one was pretty much around 50.
Yeah.
But just in general, most votes that we have in Switzerland hover around 50% for and against. And I find this interesting because it's pretty consistent in democratic countries where the vote result is always around 50%. And then you always, like, for instance, if you have presidential elections in the US, there's always like, waiting until midnight for all the ballots to be cast. And then you always see like the thing hovering. It's like, maybe one more person's going to vote and it's going to flip over. And I find so troubling with this, basically half of everyone loses every time. And like, first off, why is it always so split? Except for the animal thing. It was nice that we could agree on something. Why is it always so split? And it is a shame that so many people lose every time.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that without going from A to Z with the topic of democracy. So right. I'm holding back a bit.
Another cliffhanger.
Okay. On the topic of, this is going to be a terrible segue.
Great. Yeah, I can already feel it. Like on the topic, we didn't know there's no other topic.
What was the other?
Do your non-segue.
Okay, my non-segue. That sense-making thing that I was going to bring up at the very beginning. I'm not aware of the thing. But... Okay. So this isn't a surprise.
Okay.
This is something that was brought up quite recently. This is the 13th of February, so just a few days ago. And it was brought up on now.ch and also on 20 Minuten. The same thing. And the topic of this was that the prognosis from the Corona task force here in Switzerland made this. They gave this horrible prognosis, this doomsday prognosis, of having a weekly 10,000 hospital admissions, of which 80 to up to 300 would be in the intensive care, and it turned out to be nothing like that. And so in both I think it was on this Sonntagszeitung, they asked the what's her name, Stadler, the head of the task force, was admitted and then tried to explain where that terribly doomsdayish prognosis came from. And what she said was that I had auto-translated this before.
You can right-click and then hit translate.
Is it? Okay. So her answer was that the reason why the prognosis was so off was because they were looking to other countries in Europe. And they make this now. I've seen this claim come up numerous times previously as well, from the the Corona task force, saying the connection between the number of cases and hospitalizations has become more decoupled in Switzerland than in other countries. Okay. So their excuse for coming up with this terribly doomsday scenario a couple months back was that they were looking at how it's going on in other countries, and for some unexplicable reason, in Switzerland, the number of cases, which was going up, and hospitalizations decoupled. In other words, cases were increasing exponentially, but hospitalizations in ICU were flatlining and then indeed decreasing. So I was wondering, again, asking myself, okay, if that's their reason, does that really check out? So very simply, and this is something anyone can do, you can go to Our World in Data, and you can search here for COVID. So I'm just doing this on the fly. I did this a month ago. So we go to the dashboard here, and you can go to the Data Explorer. It's a very, very useful tool. Not all the data for everything from every country is there, because some countries just don't deliver the data. So what I did was we'll take those off and we'll put in Austria, for example. Austria and Switzerland. So for example, we have our neighboring countries. That's all of them, right? No, France is not there. Poor France. Don't leave you.
Take Liechtenstein.
Oh, is that a thing? No, I'm not gonna leave Liechtenstein.
Oh,
so
they're basically Switzerland.
So here I'm going to put it within the time frame that we are sort of talking about, which is just like sort of mid-November and so on. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at cases, right? Anyone can look up this information. And you can see here that, what's the big one? France, pretty much everyone around this time of year, so this is late December, from late December, pretty much everyone starts to kind of increase with cases, right? So their whole excuse is we were looking at the other countries and Switzerland was an outlier regarding the decoupling of cases from hospitalizations and so on, right? So, okay, let's have a look at, that's cases. Look at hospital.
Wow.
But it's a lot of, it's a lot of stuff. You can...
ICU admissions.
Hospital admissions. So for example, hospital admissions. Now check this out. What's going on here? Turns out
Germany and Switzerland are not following the trend.
Well,
Germany's going against the trend.
So that's the thing, is the narrative of Switzerland being some kind of remarkable outlier of which they could not see any neighbor showing the same trend doesn't check out.
And Austria, they don't have the data for that?
They don't have, but I'll show you Austria. They have hospital patients for Austria, and check that out.
So Austria is which one?
The second, this one here.
Switzerland.
Oh, sorry, Austria is down here.
Wow.
The green.
So in Austria, they introduced a vaccine mandate.
Yeah.
For the whole country, and yet they, of course, this doesn't take into account the population of the country, right?
This is per million.
Oh,
so
it does.
This
Okay.
is good. But
yeah, that's kind of crazy.
so the narrative is that the Corona Task Force gave this crazy prognosis because they were looking at the other countries in Europe, and that's what all the other countries were doing. But then miraculously, and for no explicable reason, Switzerland, while it was having increasing case numbers, was flattening out or dropping in its hospitalizations. But if you look at this data, you can see, again, remember we were saying like it was late December that the cases all started to increase. Look, it's going down still in Austria.
Yeah.
Right? And then it starts to go up, and it's just recently caught up with Switzerland.
When did Austria introduce their mandate?
I don't remember.
Look at it.
But so this for me is a classic example of media nonsense, or no sense media, or no sense information, because there is nothing that I've seen in the media, whether it was in the 20 Minuten story or the Now story, that said, on the other hand, two of our neighboring countries, Germany and Austria, both had the decoupling of cases from hospitalizations and ICU.
Yeah.
And that for me is, this is the thing for me. When I see the stuff, and I've seen this kind of stuff happen for at least a year now. And at some point, I was just like, this is crazy. You cannot trust the media anymore. Because any responsible journalist would get the information from Frau Stadler. Okay, that's her excuse that she's giving. Yeah. They would then go home or go to their office and check it. And it doesn't take anything. You can look this data up yourself. We can go back again. You can even go to, where's the ICU?
I find it interesting that we lifted all of our restrictions except for a few, and the trend isn't even that far down. Like, if you looked at our line there, we're pretty much just going steady when it comes to hospitalizations. So it's not like there's been a miraculous change in the amount of people going into hospital. There is a trend going down currently in Switzerland, but there's not like, oh yeah, we have like 0 patients anymore going into hospital.
Despite what?
Despite, not despite, but we have all of our restrictions lifted.
Yeah.
So they could have been lifted like months ago.
Oh yeah.
And they were like.
Yeah.
I'm basically saying the reasoning for them being lifted now is kind of, well, I guess she's saying it there.
No, this is.
That they were going off of cases and not hospitalizations. But that
this is specifically regarding the prognosis. They gave a prognosis at like a few months ago. You'll see here. Hospital utilization during the Omicron wave was significantly lower than predicted by the task force, and they admit this. The Omicron wave was clearly more harmless than the Corona Task Force predicted at the beginning of January, because in the worst case, they expected 10,000 hospital admissions a week, of which between 800 and 300 would be intensive care units. Yeah. Okay, that didn't materialize at all, right? It just didn't. So they say here now what it was, a maximum of around 1,100 hospitalizations per week. So their prognosis was almost like 10 times out of the park, 10 times higher than the reality. So now Task Force President Stadler admits that one was clearly misjudged, that they clearly misjudged. She explains the incorrect forecast above all by relying on data from other countries. So she's saying that they made the false prognosis because they were relying on data from other countries. However, the connection between numbers of cases and hospitalizations has become more decoupled in Switzerland than in other countries. And I've just shown that that's not the case. Here's the ICU patients.
Yeah.
Again, late December is when the cases were shooting up. And look at this. Look at all our neighbors here. What's going on with them? They're all clustering. All all of these countries except for France. France is up here. So France is the outlier.
Mhm.
And if you look at ICU, early January, this is where the task force made their prognosis. Germany has already been falling from way back then. What is the other one? Austria. Austria has been falling since way back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. You can look at that out of yourself, and you can,
Yeah.
So this is for me an example of just no sense information. But that's why when I look at this stuff in the media, I just check it myself as good as I can.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting site there. Definitely gonna use that more.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I mean, there's a few places you can get this data from, and I usually sort of go back and forth between them.
Yeah.
But it's pretty useful in comparing countries with countries. Now, should we move on to the fun topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to look at this because I literally just thought it was funny. It's been put around a lot that this is happening. This has definitely made it onto a lot of social media. That Jeff Bezos, with his epic resources, yeah, the Geek Wire is a good one. He wanted a yacht built, so he decided to get it built in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And just as a quick synopsis about why this is even a story. So he's having his yacht built there, right? And so there's this bridge, I can show it here. There's this bridge in Rotterdam which was destroyed by Nazi Germany during the Second World War.
Oh wow, okay.
Along with a lot of the city. And after the war ended, they rebuilt the bridge, and it became somewhat of a symbol for their recovery and their basically the world's liberation. But it's a symbol. It's a symbolic bridge for them now. And the Dutch government said this bridge will never come down again. Right? This bridge will never come down again. Cut to a few decades later, you have the world's... I don't think he's the richest man anymore. I think he's lost that title. Yeah. Jeff Bezos has now had his boat built in Rotterdam, but the boat will be too big to fit under the bridge. And so he's so graciously offered to finance its dismantling. Which is just the most stereotypical thing one of the world's richest men could do. It's just like, oh yeah, fuck your bridge. I'm not aware if he offered to finance its rebuilding. So
I think I read he did.
Okay. That would make more sense that he isn't a complete, yeah. But anyway, a lot of Rotterdam residents, and I think also a lot of Dutch citizens, are absolutely not for this. Like, why would they be? And so, if you zoom in on that, I think it's a bit small. In this article, they're basically saying that a lot of Rotterdam residents have vowed to chuck eggs at his yacht if the bridge gets taken down, which it probably will, let's be honest, and he's probably not gonna care about a bunch of eggs.
Check this out. Rotten eggs, not just eggs.
Yeah. There's a significant difference there.
You don't fuck with the Dutch.
No.
They'll rotten egg your yacht.
I guess. But I also thought that this was a very interesting line that you can draw now, that this bridge has lost or will have lost twice to two people, and those two people are Hitler and Jeff Bezos.
Ouch.
That's not a basket you want to be in.
Ouch.
So yeah, there's that tidbit. Honestly, do you think that the bridge is gonna come down?
think so. I think
I don't see it not coming down. Like there's too much money involved in this, and it's a very small bridge.
You don't think it'll come down?
I do.
Yeah.
Like look at it. It's not like
I mean, it's decently
like a
sized.
gigantic bridge
No,
that
yeah.
would be like a huge issue technically. Like
Oh.
this is more of a symbolic issue, and yeah. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how that turns out. Like I'm just imagining the workers who have to take the bridge down. Like they're gonna get harassed, man. Prepared to see some shit hitting a certain fan.
That could be a thing that would be interesting to see if the workers just like if no company wants to have anything to do with dismantling it,
Yeah.
right?
It's also like I don't know how the system works in the Netherlands, but I don't know if they have a democracy there. But it definitely seems like the majority here is not making the decision when it comes to this bridge. It's not like
I don't think so.
over 50% of Dutch citizens are saying, yeah, we want the bridge to be dismantled.
Hey, this is happening in Amsterdam, isn't it?
Rotterdam.
Oh. Okay. Another
I just
dam.
think the most ridiculous thing about this is that he decided to have his boat built there, and he was just like, oh yeah, the bridge won't be an issue. It's like, just build your boat somewhere bloody else.
415 feet.
Yeah. It's like 120 meters.
Once delivered, not only will she become the world's largest sailing yacht, but she will also hold the title for the largest super yacht ever built in the Netherlands. I mean, the question here for me is kind of like, is this setting a precedent, or maybe the precedent is already set, that
I think
essentially...
this is just fulfilling the precedent.
Yeah. So is the precedent already set that essentially, if you have enough money, you can do whatever the fuck you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. It's not cool.
Yeah. I think most of what you do when you have that money is kind of behind closed curtains. So not everyone gets to see how much you're actually getting away with. But in this case, it's just funny because of how incredibly blatant it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let me adjust your city for my boat. But yeah, we'll get back to this when it when the bridge comes or doesn't come down. Who knows?
Scramble.
Maybe they're gonna like blockade the bridge with a bunch of their little boats.
With a bunch
in
of the
between.
little boats. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they're gonna make some makeshift trebuchets. Who knows? We'll see some creativity.
There's a lot of
nonetheless.
stuff the Dutch could come up with. They're very smart, ingenious people.
They like their architecture, so I'm
do.
expecting to see
Windmills. They like their
fireworks.
Fireworks. We're not recommending anything.
Oh no, I meant that purely as a figure of speech.
Celebratory.
yeah, exactly. Everyone starts celebrating really hard.
Yeah.
Right, so that was the vote that we covered. Just as a overarching thing, are you content with how it went?
The vote?
The vote.
I mean, I voted yes for the abolition of the stamp tax duty.
Yep.
But on the other hand, I don't think it's that critical to the situation of Switzerland that it could go the other way. I just saw the win as a win for big government, a win for more taxation, and when I looked into this 1%, the 1% is called the emissions tax.
Yeah.
And that for me was like, hey, wait a minute, why is this called the emissions tax? And it's literally, it seems, an emissions tax. So that again for me was kind of like, what?
Well, because of like environmental concerns?
I mean, that's what it seemed like to me. It's called the emissions tax.
I find that to be kind of... Yeah, they call it emissions dingsbums. That's the actual name for it now. But I don't think it is actually for that, because it is in no way, shape, or form making up for anything environmental.
Okay. I don't know.
As far as
just
I
saw
can tell, it's not. I mean, I guess the government is taking steps to do environmental reparations, and it would finance that technically, but so does your tax, Frank.
Yeah.
So it's. I don't see any direct correlation there.
At this point, given all that's happened in the last 2 years, I am not at all interested in pumping any more money into government or into the media. That for me is sort of like where my head is right now. I'm just not. It just does not interest me anymore. I was very happy to see that no more of my taxes were going to go to subsidize the media. That I
think everyone also. I was somewhat surprised that that was rejected, but I guess a lot of people share that sentiment. When it came to the Stempelabgabe, I voted no on that one because of what it would mean if those big companies didn't pay the tax. This is what was sort of explained by the committee that was opposing this, and this I think that was done by the SP. I think the SP did.
What did they say?
Basically, they explained it as these big companies have been getting lower and lower taxes over the years. I think it used to be actually 3%, the Stempelabgabe, and now it's at 1%. And every time that the tax is lowered, citizens take the brunt of that, meaning the government taxes citizens higher.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw them saying something like that as well regarding if this 250 million is not coming in via this tax, then it's gonna come in, but from other avenues.
Yeah.
And they were especially talking about like the AHV and social welfare and things like that. And they were saying that's what's going to be hurt the most by it. But so the problem that I have with that rhetoric is, again, that how do I know that the left genuinely, like, how do I know that they are genuinely doing this out of the kindness of their hearts for people who are on socials and so on, and that they are not just using that?
Did the opposition there come from the left?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a huge... What's her name? I forget her first name. Badran. She's like a SP parliamentarian, a very well-known, very outspoken, lively person. I think she just retired as well. This was like just before her retirement. She was all over the media. Oh, she's in tears of joy, because of the, because the left actually took it up as the referendum.
Okay.
Because it was passed in Parliament.
How do you define them as the left?
Huh?
When you say the left, what do you mean by that?
SP on left in the Parliament.
Okay.
Like Die Mitte is Die Mitte, and then.
Yeah, I guess.
The left or the left of Parliament, like the left of the House. The Parliament decided on this, and the left were the ones who took it to the people in the referendum. So they were really happy because it's also a huge win for them politically.
Yeah.
Like taking a referendum to the people, and then the people siding with you, that's a huge political win.
Right. And against the government. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also...
the tobacco thing, though, I was a bit...
I did vote no on that one, although when I saw it went through, I wasn't too upset about it. Because what I'm assuming is that there's going to be data that comes out in the next X years about how many people are smoking, especially in the younger age brackets. And if that is the exact same, or if there's no noticeable change to then and now, then that means that this restriction did nothing, and then they could just put it back to the way it was.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we already have examples from other countries where these kind of bans have been in place for a long time, and they have terrible rates of youth smoking compared to Switzerland.
It's
so the
really
link
tough to...
the link between advertising and youth smoking is, I think that leaves lots to be proven.
Although I do think in general it would be very helpful for everyone if smoking was somehow reduced, at least. I mean, ideally no one would smoke anymore, because that is just such an unnecessary toll on life.
Honestly, on that point of things, I am more libertarian.
Yeah, of course. I mean, people should be able to, but wouldn't it be nice if they didn't? Just for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, sure. It would be nice if people also didn't go and eat McDonald's so much, or at all.
Go down that rabbit hole.
You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna start talking about things that are physically unhealthy to do, because that's why we don't like smoking. Then, well, obesity is actually the #1 killer. So anything, like, it would be nice if people exercised more. It'd be nice if people ate their vegetables more, right?
Yeah, but not smoking is, well, not stuffing your face and not smoking are probably two of the easier things.
Yep.
Of course, easier said than done.
Passively.
Yeah, you just basically don't do anything and you're good. The issue is to not do anything. Yeah.
Don't put your hand in the door when you close it. See? Well, we've reached that time. It's been a pleasure. We went a bit longer today than we normally do.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we were still not able to get through all the things that we wanted to get through.
We will never be able to. It's not possible.
That's the thing. And that's why you gotta come and tune in next time, because next time we're going to do more, and hopefully it'll be a bit better structured.
Yeah. Like Emmanuel said in the beginning, this is a learning experience for both of us, and every time we stream, we're doing something new. We've literally we're and it's not just we're doing something new because this isn't, as a project it's new. No, we're actually literally, like, with this call-in thing and with trying out different ways that we actually broadcast this. And so that's why every time there's like something new that comes up to solve, and then that puts more time constraints on it. But
this time we actually this time have done quite a few new things in one go, and we pulled it off somehow. So
this was one of the wildest weeks for me. I think we were both absolutely having our heads down doing this, but hey, it worked. It actually freaking worked. So congrats. Congrats to us.
Thanks. Yes, I finished my beers.
Yeah, well.
Oh, by the way, what?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a comparison.
I don't remember which one I.
You're gonna do the taste test with the last drop. This one's better to me.
Was it?
Yeah. It had a more full taste.
Okay. I didn't mind either.
This one's not
one.
bad. The aftertaste is a little bit more rounded on that one.
All right. So are we doing the next one? Should we announce that next time we're doing it on Monday?
We're still gonna have to look at that one to evaluate.
Okay. So basically, we're gonna have to shift the day due to something else that's coming up on a regular basis. So it's possible that next episode is being aired on Monday and not Thursday.
The going idea is that we start doing it on Mondays instead of Thursdays.
Correct.
So whether it's this coming Monday or the Monday after that, we will let you know.
That's the truth.
As usual, you can follow us on our social media platforms, which are they're in the description and on our channel, and they're everywhere. They're flying around everywhere. Find us there. We'll let you know about all the new stuff coming up.
And feel free to like and share and subscribe if you think this was worth your while.
And if you had issues with anything that we said, or you had any disagreements, we'd love to hear your side.
Too bad.
Just leave us. No, you're not supposed to say that. No, we would genuinely love to hear what you think about it.
Let us know what triggered you. There's
He's
so
kidding.
so
He's
much stuff
kidding.
that he said triggered me. So he's no.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway, all right, guys, take care, be well, be healthy, and do good by others. Something like that, huh?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next week or the week after that. Ciao.